Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning into Molly's Salon. This is our weekly program every Thursday evening where I interview innovative thinkers and creative firebrands. We're living through a critical time in American history with the COVID-19 pandemic and a vital social justice movement led by Black Lives Matter. Our guests are a variety of artists and leaders discussing new ideas, how they're coping with the coronavirus and making positive social change, as well as showing us those beautiful glimmers of hope in the future. We have a great pair tonight. My guests this week are Sherri Edelen, actor, teacher, and featured artist on the Artist Marketplace, who arena audiences will remember from projects like Dave, as well as the 51st State. And Carl Cofield, who's the Associate Artistic Director of the Classical Theater of Harlem. He's a director, he's an actor that arena audiences will remember from Cutting Up, The Piano Lesson, and other appearances. So welcome to Sherri Edelen. She's been an actor and a teacher in the Washington area for over 25 years. You saw her recently at Arena in the production of Dave. Other Arena appearances include Cabaret, Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Mike, My Fair Lady and Anne. She received the Helen Hayes Award for Les Mis and Sideshow at Signature Theater and a Barrymore Award for The Light in the Piazza at Philadelphia Theater Company. She lives in Fredericksburg, Virginia with her husband, actor Thomas Adrian Simpson and Kat Austin. They have about 8 acres, most of which they rent to 2 horses, Garrison and Dixie. And at home, they love gardening, quilting, sewing, cooking, and I know what a good cook you are, and canning, woodworking, and PBS. It's so great to see you, Sherri.
Good to see you.
And I have to say, you're also a featured artist on the Arena Stage Marketplace, and we can see a beautiful quilt hanging behind you. And I'd love to hear about your experience working on the Marketplace. Both you and Tom are on the Marketplace, right?
Yes, Tom's got a couple of woodworking piece on there, and I've got quilts and pillows, and I'm so grateful to you because it's sort of sustained us, especially over the holidays. We did quite well, we thought. It's been great, and I sort of hope you continue it after the COVID is gone.
Yeah, we're actually talking about that, Sherri, and continuing to add artists as we end up in person as well. Somebody was saying to me the other day, oh, but the artists won't have time for it. I said, you've never been in a green room. In the green room, people are crocheting, they're building things.
Yeah.
You could be working on a quilt because your quilts are extraordinary, Sherri.
Oh, thanks. It's fairly a new craft for me, and it's kept me busy and kept my mind calm, during these crazy times. But yeah, a lot of.
And you also can.
I do. We were very successful with green beans last year, and I got 20 quarts of green beans up, so I was really excited about that.
I love that, Sherri.
Pickles, jams, so much.
Everything, and pies, beautiful pies.
Oh, golly.
But let me get to some art questions for you, because I'm really curious as an actor. In the fall, you were in Olney Theater Center's production of The Humans that was streamed live. You also performed in Arena's film, The 51st State. And I'm curious about what was it like preparing and performing during this time in a world without an audience?
We were actually in rehearsal for The Humans for almost 2 weeks when we got sent home. I think it was March 13th, and we were all sent home. And then we found out about the PPP, where they were going to let the small businesses. So Olney decided that they would Zoom film it. And we did that in June. And then I think you said it kind of was on the air in the fall. It was the Zooming and the trying to act, and you feel like, you're in the Brady Bunch thing, There were upper and lower levels in the house that you don't see. So we tried to incorporate all that, and it turned out to be successful. So, and it's anything you can do that's artistic, whether it's that or sewing or whatever, in these times, it's a balm, really. It's become a balm to soothe you.
Yeah, I agree. We've been doing a lot of canning here too, and um, doing creative things, more writing probably than I've done before, even though I often write.
Right.
But it's fascinating. I'm curious because you started a new theater company where you live in Southern Maryland. And I'm curious about what inspired you to build the Bay Area Theater.
My friend Frank Robinson, who's an actor playwright, and he works in the archives at the Smithsonian. He's a big history buff. We just got together and started talking, and he always wanted to do historical educational theater, and I always wanted to do children's theater, and we just started brainstorming on how we can do it. And then at his desk at the Smithsonian, this grant crossed his desk for Southern Maryland to do something with history in Southern Maryland, and so he wrote a very short 15 to 20-minute play that we do at historic venues called Gentleman or Traitor, about the whiskey scandal that went up and down the river during the War of 1812, where they would, the Americans would poison the British whiskey. And from that, we've sort of gone on to, now we have a couple shows we're going to do in the fall of October at Chatham Manor down here in Fredericksburg. So we're just slowly branching this thing out, because it's like this new way of educational theater that doesn't really exist. And we want to eventually take it into schools if we could, because I don't know if schools are going to be allowed to come to theaters yet. So we'll bring it to them. But then it'll also be like perhaps what they're studying. We want to maybe branch out into English literature. Like what if Ichabod Crane showed up in your classroom, something like that, So, and we hope to use local actors. I think our mission statement as it is now seeks to engage, inspire, and educate audiences through live, creative, and interactive theatrical productions based in history and literature. So all the history things are going to be based on what's in that local area, so that the kids kind of know this has happened in your community, to build community again.
Yeah, well, it's powerful. And as you know, theater with young people is something that they remember their entire lives.
Yeah.
So if you're really able to grab them at a young age and ignite their imaginations, you just don't know where they're going to go.
That's what happened to me, Molly. We had the Nashville Children's Theater growing up that we went to twice a year. And I saw Helen Keller, the Tinderbox, just as a child going to the theater. Each kid paid like $2 to go. And they would ship our class down there, and it's inspired me to become an actor. And I've always loved children's theater from that point on, because children are very honest. You know where you stand right away, right away.
And how great to do it with pieces of local history.
Yes.
Because I'll bet what you'll find is they will then want to teach their families about what they're learning from you.
Right. Hope so.
Well, so they'll go home and teach mom and dad something, which is obviously an area that kids feel really proud about when they're able to do it. I think this sounds very exciting. Now, are you having to do all the administrative work as well?
Yes, right now, my friend Frank lives on a big farm, large farm in Southern Maryland, in Benedict, Maryland. And they even have a farm heritage company there, because they discovered graves of slaves that were there long before their family lived there. And then they started having agri-tours that included this extra bonus of the slaves, and they did exhume them, and they were able to figure out what they looked like. And so there's this whole small exhibit there. It's very interesting. So that everything's kind of riffing off of what's happened with Frank and his farm, and what us just collaborating. And it's very much a work in progress at this point. It's pretty small, but
yeah.
yeah.
I'm curious about your work in the industry because you've been in the industry since the 1980s, right?
Yes, that's right.
So what's been the most significant thing that you have discovered about your craft or about
Oh,
yourself?
that's hmm. Well, I'm going to go with the first thing that came to my head. And it's I've learned that I have to be patient. I have to be patient and to allow myself to fail, especially in rehearsal, and to use that time to make all your mistakes. Um, it's hard because people are watching and you think you have to be perfect and you don't. You just have to relax and create it. And with people like, directors like you, just guide us through. So I had a hard time sometimes just letting go of the control of it, and once I started just enjoying it more, um, and just being patient with that process, that now I find that I really enjoy rehearsals and all that involves. And I used to really like performing more and the run of the show, which I still do, but now I really crave that creative time in the rehearsal studio.
Yeah, well,
Does that make sense?
that's where you either find the gold or you don't find the gold, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, some people find it more in front of an audience and other artists find it in the rehearsal hall and then bring it to an audience.
You know,
What's the thing you hate the most about rehearsing?
um, getting off book the first time is it. That's again about me being patient with myself, and allowing myself to go. I call for line. It's okay, um, the first time you have to be off book and because you always want to try to impress and everything, and I've just really learned to let that go. Why, can you think of something?
No, but I would say, because I was an actor for a number of years too, I think it would be that first moment when you're off book,
Hmm.
because it's always nervous making. Am I going to remember the line? Am I going to remember each word? You're flying without you don't have your wings on yet,
No, but
and you're trying to fly.
what's really the great discovery in that I've learned is that when you don't know the line that comes next, it's because you're not quite understanding, what's that thought process that gets you to that line. If you don't, that means you haven't totally connected all the dots yet, So I've really learned to, and I've started keeping journals now more in rehearsals to try to help as I learn things. And that's been very helpful. Gosh, it's been a long time.
I know, I know. And you're such a great comic actor, as
Oh,
well as wonderful singer and performer and everything else. And God knows this is a moment where we really, really need to be able to laugh.
I was hoping that when theater comes back that people would do a lot of comedies. Just even do like a four-hander, or something. I would come see them because I want to laugh too.
What's your favorite American comedy?
Oh my gosh. Oh
You
my
know, I
gosh.
was thinking about You Can't Take It With You. I was thinking about Dinner at Eight. For me, Front Page, although that can be really unwieldy and complicated. I was thinking about some of the older ones, but I'm wondering about the new ones like The Foreigner. That isn't even that new, but what are the really funny plays? I mean, August Osage County in a lot of ways is a very funny
Yeah.
play.
Oh yeah,
I
I
mean,
would love to have a shot at that because Mitch A. Bear used to talk about the one that was up at Everyman and how it was really crackled. He's used that phrase, and I said, "Wow, I wish I could have seen that." I saw the movie, but I wasn't. I was underwhelmed. It was heavy.
yeah, yeah. The Broadway production was exquisite. On the edge of your seat for 3.5 hours. I mean,
Wow.
it really, really was. Well, Sherri, we're past time. I
Yeah.
just want one moment where you're finding a glimmer of hope?
Nature. It's been the most glorious spring. It was a beautiful fall. We had several beautiful snows here. And it's proving that the world's continuing on. The world's going on. It's all going to be good. And can I say it? Biden got elected. Yay.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes,
that's
you can.
hopeful. That's hopeful.
Yes, it is. It's so great to see you, Sherri, and my best to Tom, and can't wait to see you again in person.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Carl Cofield is a New York-based director, actor, and is currently the Associate Artistic Director of the Classical Theater of Harlem. And he has just been appointed chair of the graduate acting program at NYU beginning this fall, which is absolutely incredible, and they are in for a treat. He directed the award-winning world premiere of A Night in Miami for the Rogue Machine Theater and Denver Theater Center, for which he received the LA NAACP Award for Best Director. He's worked in New York and around the country, including Classical Theater of Harlem, 48 Hours in Harlem from Harlem 9, the Yale Rep, Everyman Theater, Denver Center Theater Company, Cleveland Playhouse. And I loved it because he assisted me in the world premiere of Camp David by Lawrence Wright at Arena Stage. And his acting work has also been seen all around the country. Welcome, Carl.
Molly Smith, thank you so much for having me here. It's a delight to be in your Zoom presence.
It's a delight to be with you too, Carl. And it's just so exciting for me about what's happening with you, your trajectory. You've been an actor. You're a wonderful director, which we're going to get into in a few minutes. You lecture at the Yale School of Drama, NYU, and the New School, and you're kind of moving through acting, directing, leading as Associate Artistic Director. Now you're going to be leading as the chair of the graduate acting program. Talk about that journey, Carl.
You know, Molly, it's an interesting one. So much like Sherri, I started as an actor, as a kid actor. My uncle, Clarence Thomas, not to be confused with the Supreme Court Justice, but was an actor in South Florida. And Burt Reynolds had a theater called the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater, where a lot of New York actors would come and winter and do some really great work that they didn't necessarily get a chance to do in New York. And so my uncle was a contemporary of like Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee. So I would literally be the kid in the wings while he was performing and mouthing the words. But more importantly, Molly, I was seeing that the effect that it had on the audience, and being in the same space and seeing how actors and great theater could really instigate conversation. So that was the path that I started on at 4. And I had a little bit of a different trajectory. So I was doing commercials and film and TV. At 12, I think I did like 12 Burger King commercials. I was almost like a national spokesperson for these companies. But what really interested me was that power of theater and that sort of ritual that happened. So, I went to school and conservatory and did all that stuff and had the great fortune to come out to New York to, beat the pavement and chase my dream the way the models in front of me had been, the Sidney Poitiers, the Denzels, the Sam Jacksons. And I came to New York with the ambition to, if I could make my home at the Negro Ensemble Company, I would have said that is a complete successful career. Unfortunately, theater companies go through changes, and NEC wasn't on the landscape of the New York that I came to in the way that it was in its heyday. So I got a chance to work in some great theaters, the acting company, which led me to Arena Stage, which I want to put a pin in and say that was a huge, huge influence. My time in DC, my time at Arena Stage, and my time watching your leadership style, which led me then to directing, because I wanted to emulate what I had seen at Arena, because it wasn't just a transactional relationship at Arena. It felt like that we were seriously invested in a dialogue with the community. So it wasn't like just buy a ticket, come see the show, get your parking validated and go home, but we were really engaged in that dialogue. And to me, that was what was special. So I went back to school to become a director and to understand the craft and hopefully to become an AD. And that has led me on a path as a freelance director and would interview for AD positions, but I was lacking that institutional experience. So that led me to Classical Theater of Harlem.
Fascinating. And then where you're going next is, will you continue with the Classical Theater of Harlem at the same time you're at NYU? Can you do both? Or do you have to make a choice?
No, I do. And you know what's interesting about this whole conversation is I would be remiss if we don't bring Zelda into the conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? Such a weird, unique tie. Zelda Fitzgerald has changed the landscape, not only of the American theater, but as we train young theater makers, not young, but the future theater makers and actors. So to be in the position to have Arena Stage be such a a pivotal moment in my career just as an actor, and then to go to NYU, I think is just amazing to me.
It's so exciting, Carl, because she went to NYU soon after I came to Arena, and I watched her transform the program, because she always believed that the actor was of and about the community, that the actor always had something important to say, and that what you did in the rehearsal hall was a laboratory. It wasn't transactional. You were doing the greatest and the most essential work possible by being an actor. And I think she infused people with that. So for years, people would say to me, what are the best schools when you're seeing people come into auditions? It was always for me, NYU, because it was almost the actor as priest, right? And it was in Chicago, because I felt like the actors there were really taught how to tell a complete story through design, through storytelling techniques, I'm sure part of that came out of Frank Galati, but two very different energies. And you're stepping into that, Carl. So you get to keep building on it. Is there anything that you feel that will be central to your mission in terms of working with the actors?
Molly, what I will say is it's a tremendous privilege, right, to work with actors. I think I subscribe to that same ethos that Zelda has, that the actor is doing vital, critical work. So I definitely want to build and say yes and to the actors coming in. Yes and. I do think in a BC and before COVID and post-COVID world, how we train actors, we have to take in some other thoughts on the landscape that we're sending actors out to. For me, if we're talking about equality, we have to look at the model of how to make this affordable, right? I think it's very problematic to ask a person to invest 3 years of their life and saddle them with $130,000 of debt in a career that Actors Equity tells us, if you're fortunate, right, you make about a fifth of that.
Right.
So that is something that I'm excited to navigate and tackle and grapple with, about how do we provide support for young people who want to chase their dreams and be an actor, but yet we don't hobble them out of the gate. Because in my world, I'd love for people to say, I'm going to go to Arena Stage and hopefully be a company member, right? And that, play these great roles, work with new playwrights, work with fantastic artistic directors. But a lot of them, I think, Molly, are hamstrung from the beginning because of the financial burdens that they're under. So that leaves a very small window to say, I have to go to Hollywood and chase a celebrity. And while that might work out, I would say that we should at least provide some more options, or you know, a different conversation could be had.
Yeah, it's really soul killing to just feel like you just need to go and make money to be able to practice your craft. Do you think that Biden's new programs that he is focusing on that has to do with forgiving student loans will be something that will be very helpful for artists?
I definitely think so. I definitely think so. I'm cautiously optimistic about that because of the global reckoning that we're in. We're all
Yep.
having to look at things, massive problems, in a creative way to find creative solutions. So I think that is definitely something that we need to be talking about, right?
Yeah.
And having a new approach and a new strategy around these problems is something that is sorely needed. And I will say, as theater people, as artists, that's one of our main gifts. We can look at things from a different vantage point and create something anew that a lot of people might not have thought of in the same way. So I'm super excited about it. The recent events have given me some pause about where we are, just and not to make the whole interview heavy. But as a student of history, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
And the optimism that we've evolved sort of is tarnished on the 6th. We haven't really.
Well, the insurrection on January 6th is, it's a bloody wound, and it's still seeping. And the racial reckoning that the country has been going through because of all of the murders of young Black people at the hands of policemen is an area of reckoning for the entire country. It's like it's ripped the veil off of people's eyes that hadn't been able to see it, and people who have seen it and who have lived it from lived experience. Finally, there is some change happening on the horizon. And I just pray that it continues, Carl. And in the meantime, our work as theater artists, I know how much you love the Greeks, and I do too. In Alaska, I did more Greek plays than any other form of theater, probably because it was all about the relationship of man to the gods. And in Alaska, if you're not thinking about the gods, forget it. So talk about why the Greeks are important for you.
Yeah, I think they're massively important to me because they ask the existential questions, and they really force us to say, who are we as a society? Who do we claim to be? And who do we want to be? Right? And so one of the great structural things in the Greeks is you're always presented with a choice, right? So when you start talking the later dramatists, right, the gods and this is just fate is taken out of it. You're presented with a choice. And what do? Your free will is now on you. No longer can we just blame the gods and beat our chests and say, woe is me. You have a choice to make. And that is something that fascinates me, especially in this moment of time, right? Where we are really asking massive, massive existential questions. If we have the courage to make the choice and learn from past history, like the wolf looking over its shoulder, always looking over to see where we've come from, hopefully that future can be brighter. And that's a reason why I think these plays are still here, can be examined through a 21st century lens. It's because of those questions.
Will you be teaching the Greeks when you're working with the students at NYU?
You know, that's something that I'm in calibrating the curriculum that I really have to think. I think we should be exposed to it, right? And I want to veer away from like terms like classic. It's heightened language and big poetic language, right?
Yep.
So there might be a way that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, where we still honor those, because I know that's a thing that's going on at Howard right now. We're talking about eliminating the classics, right? I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we just have to expand the canon. and look for the 21st century equivalents of those who are talking from the past. Will Power, Luis Alfaro, like there are 21st century equivalents that we can look at the structure, look at the dynamics, and hopefully dig down into those big existential questions to make us better. And arts can catapult us out of where we are now to that brighter future.
Beautiful, beautiful, Carl. So I'm curious, as you work on contemporary pieces, like One Night in Miami, what did you bring in that you had learned from artists, like as you were working on the Greeks, as you were working on Shakespeare? How did you bring in those ideas into something like One Night in Miami?
Well, it's great because here in One Night in Miami, for those who don't know, it's the night that Cassius Clay defeats Sonny Liston to become the heavyweight champion. He spends the night in Miami with his three best friends, Jim Brown, Malcolm X, and Sam Cooke. If those aren't iconic archetype men, right, from the Greeks, you know, these are larger than life. So I brought to it, Molly, funny enough, something that I've learned from you, to interact with the actor and to dig deeper and keep asking questions to get to the core, and not have these pre-assumptions about who these men are, right? What I said is we're not interested in an imitation, because quite frankly, to me, an imitation can bump an audience member out and say, well, that's not how he said that word. We're interested in the essence of what this means and what it really means. So Molly, that's a shout out to you to say that, you know, a big fan of your style and how you worked with actors. That's how I approached the new work, and I bring that lens to the old work also, right? So they're complementing each other all the time. Old work we're looking at in new eyes. New work we're looking at structure and how, you know, those things flow together.
Beautiful, Carl. Well, we expect great things from you because we've already seen great things from you. So I can't wait to continue following your career. Thank you so much for coming on, Carl. I can't wait to see you in person.
All my love, Molly.
Much love to you. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a bright light. What a bright light. So beautiful to see Carl. So beautiful to see Sherri. And I just wanted to talk to our audience. I know some of you have watched Molly's Salon since we debuted on April 9th, 2020. And today is our 53rd episode, if you can believe it. We took a few weeks off around the holidays. Next week, and I'm really sad to say this, next week will be our finally weekly installment. Can you believe it? But don't worry, we will be back with a new format over the summer, celebrating Arena's return to in-person activity, because this has been very much about COVID, being inside of our homes and having these deep, interesting, fascinating conversations with artists and with thinkers, and I've absolutely adored it. I just want to give a special thanks to Renee Littleton, Brian DeMoya, Allison Irvin, and Suzanne Blue Star Boy, my partner, and the many people who have supported these weekly salons. It takes a village, believe me, to put on the salons. So my guest for next week's special episode will be Charles Randolph Wright, who is an American film, television, and theater director, and Carl was in Cutting Up, which he directed. He's a producer, he's a screenwriter, he's a playwright, and one of my close friends. And Peter Marks, who's a drama critic, theater reporter, Metro reporter, and national correspondent. You're not going to want to miss these two really fascinating men. And this will be an extra special final episode. And then we'll see, where does the salon go? Does the salon go into the inner bowels of Arena Stage? Would you like to see the vaccination site that's operating now? So stay tuned for that. Tonight's Gift of Art features a virtual Camp Arena Stage. This is creativity in the community of Camp Arena Stage. Have it come into your home this summer. In this half-day multi-arts program, campers choose their own schedules from a list of classes in theater, music, dance, media, visual art, and writing, and will be immersed in interactive arts activities. Here's a glimpse at artist Rosie Algers, who is leading a comics and cartooning class. Enjoy, have a ball watching her. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rosie Alger, and I am so excited to be teaching comics and cartooning at Camperina Stage this summer. During each class, the students and I will work together to explore different genres of illustrating and drawing cartoons and comics. We will look at different styles such as anime or your favorite classic superhero comic book, and eventually work together to create our own styles and our own characters. I will work with the students to help them storyboard a story for their characters and eventually put together an entire page of comic panels. Camperina Stage is community, it's artistry, it's collaboration, and it's a whole lot of fun. I hope to see you there.